Hey everyone, this is the Black Manga Critic here with a new video for the channel. And today is the eve of July 3rd, but even more importantly, today is Manga Monday. And that means that we're going to be looking at a manga volume or a manga chapter in depth and reviewing and analyzing it. And that's always fun. So today, we're going to be looking at Hunter x Hunter Volume 2. And I love this volume. I mean, you know, just in terms of a quick review, I love this volume. I love what it does with pacing, with character development. I really dig some of the new characters that are coming into the mix, what they add to the pacing and development of the story and characters and things of that nature. So, right off the bat, we get Togashi using a character as what I like to call a pacemaker. And, you know, I'm not talking about what they put in your heart, you know, so that, you know, certain people can stay alive. But I'm talking about a character that keeps pace for the manga, for the story, for the plot, for those things. And Hisoka is very much so a character that does that, right? He's taking out as many exam takers as possible. And in one sense, he does that because as a character, he's really interested in finding strong individuals, right? People who he deems worthy of living. So that maybe one day, you know, he can fight them at some point, or maybe he gets a thrill off of watching people squirm. I don't know. But we do understand that for the plot, for the story, he allows things to move quickly, right? Because we don't have to spend much time worrying about the characters that he's either killed or injured enough to where they can't take the exam anymore, right? So that's really fascinating. But he also allows us to see what certain characters can do as quickly as possible, right? So when we see Leorio try to attack Hisoka crazily, I mean, because that's a crazy thing to do. Clearly, he's no match for him, right? But we do see that happens fairly quickly, right? Leorio comes up, he says, I'm not going to be the type of person that that's going to run away. Hisoka likes that. And then Gon comes in to sort of save the day, right? But even just as quickly as Gon comes in, Leorio gets knocked out, right? And he's out of the picture for the time being. So it's just Hisoka and Gon, right? And that happens just as quickly, right? We understand, we see what Gon can do. He tries to attack Hisoka, but almost in a few panels, Hisoka has the upper hand. But he deems Gon worthy because he did hit him with that stick, with his fishing rod. That was a pretty cool thing. And then Hisoka says, okay, this is the end of things. I'm going to go on to the next part of the exam. Someone calls him and says, hey, you got to make moves because the pacing of the story needs to stay at a particular speed. So, in one sense, Hisoka's friend calling him keeps the pace at a reasonable speed, right? We don't want to stay in the second phase of the exam for too long. Hisoka doesn't necessarily want to stay in the second phase, and all the characters want to move, and all the rest of the characters want to move on as quickly as possible, right? So that's great. We understand that Hisoka is someone who acts as a character that's really invested in his own sort of, you know, weird motivations. But we also understand that Togashi is clearly using him as a pacemaker. So by the second part of the exam, well, the end of the second part of the exam, we've moved down from about 405 individuals to 148 individuals. And that's a drastic drop, right? And and the reason for that is so that we can move from parts of the exam as quickly as possible and worry about as few characters as possible. We don't need to know about 148 characters. We definitely don't need to know about 405 characters at this point in the story. We're only really interested in the characters that Togashi puts at the forefront. So we move on into the second part of the exam. And this is really great for pace because we see that we have two characters, one Budohara and Menchi, who are also acting as pacemakers, right? They're eliminating as many exam takers as possible, and they're giving them these challenges that may or may not be difficult to complete. So Budohara is completely fulfilling his role as a pacemaker. He says, okay, I'm hungry. So you know, all of you guys go out and catch a roast, and well, not a roast, but catch a dangerous pig in the forest and come back and roast it and feed it to me. And if you do that, you'll probably be fine. So in one sense, Togashi does this because it's very clear that it's not a particularly hard thing to do in the grand scheme of things, because a lot of these examiners are physically capable. So they shouldn't have too many problems in terms of catching this pig. And that allows us to move quickly into the next part of the third part, well, the second phase of the exam, right? So we see that, and then the numbers have dwindled down from 148 to 70, and that's another marked drop, right? Now we have fewer characters that we got to deal with. We don't care about all the other characters that dropped just now, and we move into the sort of second part of the second phase of the exam. And Menchi is a really interesting character because she does something that a lot of the characters prior to this stage, in terms of being pacemakers, haven't done. She sort of, says, okay, well, I'm going to do my own thing as a character and forget Togashi, forget what he's trying to do with pace and setting the pace. She says, okay, I'm going to set up this challenge that to me doesn't seem particularly difficult, but to the characters is clearly difficult because none of them really know how to cook food as well as a gourmet hunter or gourmet chef, which Menchi is, right? So Menchi is saying, not only am I going to make sure that the characters have a difficult thing to complete, but I myself don't even realize that I'm setting a task that's nearly impossible for these people because, as Menchi says, she is not an examiner at this point, but more of a chef. And I don't know if you've met anybody who's particularly creative, and is not necessarily a cook, but is just creative, right? And is an artist or someone who makes things, who's really interested in the process and things of that nature. They're all a little nuts, right? Like they're all a little intense when it comes to the minutia of things. So already we have a character who's going to make everything really, really hard. And she makes it so hard to keep pace with the exam that everybody fails. And this is crazy, right? Because if we have no people taking the exam, then we can't get to the other parts of the exam because the exam's over. So as readers, we're all wondering, what the hell is Menchi doing? And luckily, some of the other examiners realize this, and Netero enters the scene, right? Chairman Netero. And he's sort of a pacemaker, but he's sort of like an upper echelon pacemaker, right? He's sort of like a maintainer of the pacemakers, right? So he comes into the story and he says, as a character, I'm going to make sure not only that the pace is to the reader's liking, but I'm also going to make sure that the people who are supposed to be keeping the pace are in line, right? And as The Rock, from the WWE says, know your damn role and shut your damn mouth. And this is something that, like, Menchi needs to know, right? She needs to shut her damn mouth, know her role as a character, as a pacemaker, and just keep the damn pace, right? Don't go out of, don't go crazy doing, ridiculous things as a chef, as a gourmet hunter. Just make sure that the characters can have an option to pass, right? So Netero does this. He allows her to sort of say, okay, you're going to be able to redeem yourself, but you're going to have to show that everyone taking the exam can do what you're going to stipulate, right? So she does that, and that's great, because one, it says that no character can go around just doing whatever the hell they want in terms of keeping the pace. There's a certain pace that needs to be kept, and Togashi is really great about showing that every character needs to know their role. And Menchi is a pacemaker. That's basically all she is at this point, right? She's supposed to, she's supposed to teach the examiners that, hey, gourmet hunters matter. But really, she's a pacemaker, right? So after this point of the exam, the numbers have dwindled down to 42, and thank the Lord, because 70 people taking the exam is still way too large of a number, right? We need as few characters and exam takers as possible so that we can be interested in how they're moving along and how they're moving through the exam phases, right? So I think in terms of pacing, another thing in terms of pacing is when we sort of move into the break between the exam phases, right? We're on Chairman Netaro's blimp, and, you know, Chairman Netaro is, again, doing things to sort of keep the pace of the manga, right? The blimp is sort of something that moves fairly slowly, right? And so in that way, Togashi is telling us, okay, the pace is going to come to a crawl a bit, right? We're not going to just come to a stop, but we are going to sort of move not at a snail's pace, but more so at, like, you know, like if a car is moving like 20 miles an hour or something like that, right? It's not very fast, but it does allow us to get from point A to point B in a way that's not, you know, super, super slow. So Netaro challenges Gon and Killua to a game. And that's really interesting because we don't really, we know that Netaro's probably, like, very strong. But we don't know how strong he is. But we do know that Gon and Killua are preternaturally talented, right? So this is something that is going to, go into character development, and I'm going to talk about that a bit later on in the video. But for now, it's just about, Netaro acting as, someone who says, okay, for now, the story needs to kind of slow down a little bit because, we want some character development to happen, but that couldn't necessarily happen during the second phase of the exam because Menchi, didn't know her role, and Hisoka was killing off characters, and so that made it a bit difficult for character development to happen in earnest. So after Netaro challenges Gon and Killua, and clearly they're no match for him, right? We move into the third part of the exam, and that also moves relatively quickly, right? Togashi does a really great job of saying, okay, here are the rules for the challenges, right? And we only get one challenger. We get two challengers, right? We get Tonpa and Gon, but Tonpa quits immediately, and that's great for the pace, right? Tompa's also a pacemaker, right? He's crushing rookies, and in this way, he's crushing rookies by saying, okay, what we're going to do is do this challenge, but I'm going to quit because, like, we're not going to waste time going through the motions or whatever, right? We're just going to get to the next person as quickly as possible. And that's great for us because we know that Tonpa isn't particularly physically talented in relation to the other, strong candidates for the Hunter exam, right? But we do know that he's crucial for maintaining the pace, right? So Tonpa quits, and now it's Gon's turn. And Gon is really quick, right? He's got a quick first step. He's got a bit of ingenuity. And so this guy, who used to be, a terrorist bomber, is trying to, make this stage not necessarily last as quickly as possible, but he's, he's going through all of these, little rules and stipulations, and Gon's just like, okay, well, you know what? I'm just gonna run and blow the candle out because you're trying to throw me off with all these tricks, and you're slowing down the pace a little bit, and I'm gonna pick things up, right? So he gets through that challenge relatively quickly through his ingenuity, and that, and I'm gonna talk about character development a little bit in terms of the candle challenge later on in the video as well. But for now, we just need to know that the pace is moving fairly quickly, right? And that's pretty much like the end of the volume. And so, in terms of pacing, we see that the volume has gone through, two parts of the exam relatively quickly, right? It went through the second part, and it's still going through like a part of the third part relatively quickly. So we can sort of assume that volume 3 is probably going to be just as quick. So now we're going to get into character development. And I think this is something that Togashi does very subtly in a lot of ways, particularly with regards to Leorio, Kurapika, Gon, and Netaro, right? And those 4 individuals are really, really important in terms of showing how Togashi doesn't need to explicitly develop characters, right? In a way that's like, I completed this challenge, so that means that I've developed as a character in this particular way. No, it's like, okay, there are sort of layers to it. And I guess the first pair that I want to talk about are Leorio and Killua. So we see in this second phase of the exam, Hisoka's on a killing spree, right? And Kurapika and another person taking the exam decide to run, right? They're like, okay, we can't beat Hisoka. There's no way to do this. So Hisoka notes that that's a smart move. And it seems that Leorio also ran off. But then, like, about a page later, we realize that, oh, Leorio's not going to run off. And at first we think, oh, like, this is, you know, just sort of like maybe this is a cheesy kind of shonen, battle shonen trope where, you know, a character shouldn't run away because he has to face challenges and blah, blah, blah. But what it really sort of, but we also understand that Hisoka thinks that running away is a smart move, but facing him is something that makes Leorio worthy to take the rest of the exam and go about being a hunter. So so that's a little confusing. So basically Hisoka is sort of saying that, okay, there's a spirit and a determination to Leorio that sort of supersedes that of a lot of the other people taking the exam, right? Otherwise, he would have said, okay, you're an idiot, you're trying to face me, and I should just kill you right now. But he doesn't kill him because for whatever reason, Hisoka has also has a preternatural talent for seeing talent, right? And that's cool because now we sort of see Hisoka as a sort of predictor of pace in a sense. We understand that Leorio is probably going to become a hunter at some point. Gon is probably going to become a hunter at some point, right? And that's great because we're going to get to see more of them later. But in terms of character development, we basically understand that Leorio is someone that has a fierce determination, even though he's not necessarily physically capable of taking down most of the people within the exam. Right? There are a bunch of people that are probably a lot stronger and mentally and more mentally capable than he is. We're thinking of Hanzo, Gon, Killua, Hisoka, probably Kurapika, right? Like these people are physically capable. But if we're thinking about the point that I made in my last video about Hunter x Hunter Volume 1, and thinking about the duality that exists between Gon and Killua, we might say that Leorio and Killua have a much more direct opposition in terms of their character development and in terms of their character makeup, right? When Gon and Killua are going to face Netero in the ball challenge, Killua is very sort of sure of himself. He has an idea that Netero is probably pretty strong, but he doesn't yet realize that he can't beat Netero at this point in the game, right? At this point, it's clear that Killua is very strong. He can use the rhythm echo, right? That is an amazing ability, but it's still not enough, right? And almost immediately, Killua says, okay, well, I can't do this. I can't beat this old man. He's too strong. I quit, right? And that is directly opposed to Leorio's decision because Leorio is not physically capable at all to fight Hisoka, right? But Killua is preternaturally talented, right? He's a killer. He was trained to be a killer by his family, so he should have more hope or more of an ability to say, okay, if I try hard enough, I can probably get the ball from this guy, right? But he doesn't do that. He quits immediately, and that has a lot to do with the fact that Killua doesn't really have any goals or motivations in terms of taking the Hunter exam. We know that Leorio wants to be a doctor, and that stems from the fact that his childhood friend died, and he couldn't save him because he didn't have the money and he didn't have the skills, right? So there's a deeply rooted sense of obligation and motivation, right, to become a doctor, to pass the exam, to not let anyone get in Leorio's way. But Killua doesn't have that, so he seems to quit relatively quickly, and that's the duality of it, right? And maybe even more so than Gon and Killua's duality, Leorio and Killua's duality are very, very much so opposed. Leorio is not very strong, but he has a fierce determination. Killua is very strong, but his determination is lacking. So now we can get into thinking about the duality that sort of exists between Gon and Netero, right? And there's a pretty decent amount of character development happening there, because as Gon and Killua are trying to take the ball from Netero, right? We know that Killua quits, and we know that Netero is getting, relatively bored, because he understands that that they're probably not going to be able to take the ball from him. But Gon does something that's really, really fascinating. He decides, okay, I know that I can't beat Netero and take the ball and fulfill his challenge, but I can issue my own challenge. And that's really key in terms of character development, because Gon is saying, even though I can't beat this, insurmountable person in Netero, what I can do is issue my own challenge, not only to Netero, but to myself. So in that way, what he does is saying that even if Netero doesn't accept the challenge that he's positing, Gon has his own challenge to fulfill. So what that does as a character is that it shows Gon as an individual who walks to the beat of his own drum. He says that, okay, Netero is like overwhelmingly powerful, but that doesn't matter because it's all about me. And in that way, yes, he is very much so selfish. I mean, now we see that he's kind of a selfish character, right? He's issuing his own challenge. He doesn't really care about Netero's previous challenge, because he's like, okay, well, I can't do that. But what I can do is say, okay, Netero, I'm going to beat you at your own game. I'm going to, 1, issue a challenge, and 2, complete that challenge. So Gon supersedes Netero's own selfishness, because it's very clear that Netero's a selfish character, right? What he does is says, okay, I'm going to issue this challenge, and I know that, both Gon and Killua can't, fathomably, complete this challenge, but this is all about me. This is all about me having a good time, having fun. This is all about me being a sort of, upper echelon setter of pace. So I'm going to slow down the pace for myself. So in one way, Netero really acts as a character that Togashi has somewhat of a control on, right? In the sense that, he is setting a pace, but it's still very much so a selfish pace, right? Because this isn't a part of the exam. They're just flying over to the next part of the exam. And so in that way, there is a slowing down of the pace, but it's a slowing down of the pace for Netero, for himself. And Gon says, you know what? No, you're doing that right now, but what I'm going to do is do it for me, because I'm the one taking this exam. I'm the one that needs to grow. I'm the one that needs to issue my own challenges to myself, right? So that's great character development for Gon. And in that way, if we're thinking about the duality and the parallelism that exists between Gon and Killua, we see that Killua doesn't really do that for himself, outside of killing those other examees. If anything, all he does is get rid of a few more exam takers, but he doesn't really show any sense of beating to his own drum, right? He lets Netero control the pace, even though he's using rhythm echo, which is something which is an assassination technique that has to do with pace. Killua's own setting of pace cannot supersede Netero's setting of pace, right? But apparently Gon can. So that's really interesting in thinking of Gon and Killua as sort of pace setters, but also as characters that develop in at different paces, right? So in terms of being a hunter within this universe, Volume 2 really sort of says that, okay, you really, really, really need to be hot shit. Like, you cannot, if you can't, if you're not up to Hisoka's liking, or Netero's liking, or any of these examiners, you're screwed. You're probably not going to pass the exam. And that means that being a hunter is really, really tough. And also, Menchie mentions that, knowing the martial arts is like second nature to hunters, right? So all of these characters really have to show a physical prowess that doesn't necessarily match Netero's or Hisoka's, because these are characters that are ridiculously strong. But they do, at the very least, have to show that you know, fighting is in their second nature. And in some ways, Leorio shows that, right? Because he can't run away, right? Not only because of his goal to be a doctor, but because, you know, fighting's in his nature, right? It almost seems as if, not necessarily the martial arts, but the ability to, you know, go into combat is in his nature, right? It's in his nature, it's in Killua's nature, it's in Gon's nature, right? Because Gon seems to seek the thrill of battle, of dangerous environments and situations. So that makes those three hunters, right? And Kurapika runs away, you know, initially, but maybe down the line we'll see a bit more of what makes him sort of physically capable in terms of the martial arts and things of that nature, right? So I guess that's really all I wanted to talk about in terms of the manga volume. And you know, if you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. And please, you know, definitely comment. I'm always looking forward to hearing from people about how they feel about my videos, how I can improve, things of that nature. You know, and subscribe if you want more content. If you, you know, that way it lets me know that, okay, the content that I'm making is great and you want more of it. So be on the lookout for my review and analysis of Hunter x Hunter chapter 362. And that was an amazing chapter. If you're caught up, obviously, but if you're not caught up, you know, then just worry about looking out for my review and analysis of Hunter x Hunter Volume 3. Okay? So this is a black manga critic saying, Happy 4th of July. Hope you have a happy rest of Manga Monday. And bye-bye.